March 2016, I quitted my job to travel the world. So it's like traveling randomly, and I got this job offer here out of nowhere over LinkedIn. And I was like, yeah, whatever, I've never been to Poland, so after a few months I could use a break of sleeping in hostels and tents and deserts and stuff. Uh, no, but obviously if I say something about my sexual orientation too loud and in a way that's or too obnoxious, I would get a lot of like gossiping and I could like hear all the mumbling, and obviously people would say like "pedago," which is this homophobic slur. Well, given the current status of the situation in regards of minorities and how very little the criminal code of Poland and the constitution is respected, at least homosexuality is not uh, illegal. But in practice, I've been to places where homosexual intercourse is forbidden, and the place where I felt the most uncomfortable was here. Yes, luckily one of the conditions for Poland to join the EU was to add protection against any kind of discrimination, which includes LGBT people. A big issue that happens in Poland, especially outside of Krakow and Warsaw, which may be like more progressive and tolerant and cooperative with foreigners, is that the main speeches, even among NGOs and activists in general, is more often a white speech. So if there are like a lot of feminist organizations that fall into white feminism and that overlook that people of color exist here and are not just a minority but like part of the people that live here. Yes, there's been a lot of reports suggesting how to improve the situation from ILGA Europe mainly, but KPH, Campaign Against Homophobia in Polish, um, they also have proposed a lot of improvements. The issue is, for instance, about 2 years ago, or maybe three, both chambers voted in favor of the gender identity law that would allow trans people to have their perceived gender in their paperwork in an official way and without having to sue their parents, for instance. And although that was voted by a majority and approved, the president, Andrzej Duda, like current president, used the power of veto to veto that law. So people that were elected by a majority and that are now in power, if they personally disagree with something that even their party voted in favor, then minorities have no chance, and that's a major issue with the ruling party. Well, my partner was based in Warsaw before moving to New York. So Warsaw is like rather an open place, but obviously if we were like kissing or holding hands in public, we would get looks. The difference when we would do it here, like at least there people wouldn't like scream or like stare us constantly, like happens around here when you do. Like I had dates with like cis men here in Wrocław that after several dates and like being interested or whatever, they wouldn't want to kiss in public, like even like men I had sex with that were from other Polish cities like far away. That were underfunded because until recently Kultura Rownosci, which is the most involved in the city, had no constant or easy way of funding, and we were like invisible to the city as a whole. We couldn't get a lot of opportunities to do a lot more than we could afford, which was basically the pride. Well, yes, on average, I would say like Polish men, at least, like cis-dyadic men, are on like you have like really big chances that they will be like closeted, especially like the older they are, the more likely they would be like closeted people. Positive thing, or non being white or not being read as white was a positive thing. And being like an LGBT person wasn't an issue, and here I've discovered like most of the aspects of my identity are an issue and a major issue that can get me into a fight just like by crossing over the street in plain daylight. But sadly, the current political situation in Poland doesn't make it possible to develop farther in terms of rights for minorities in general. So even I'm interested and I do a lot of advocacy and I try to get funding. There's a point where I also need to have like a safe environment to like move around. So that's like my showstopper. I know for the long term, I won't be safe.